Captain Eva Rostova's breath fogged the viewport of her EVA suit, a small, personal cloud in the vast, silent vacuum. Before her, the Ethelgard hung in the black like a shard of forgotten god, its colossal, geometric form absorbing the light of a distant, cold star. It was a tomb, a monument to a civilization so advanced its only legacy was this silent, empty shell. She was the first to breach its hull, a trespasser in a graveyard of stars. Her boots crunched on the crystalline dust that coated the primary airlock floor, a sound impossibly loud in the oppressive quiet. The air inside was thin and sterile, tasting of ozone and ancient dust. Her helmet lamp cut a cone of white through the gloom, revealing corridors that stretched into infinity, lined with walls that seemed to breathe with a slow, geological pulse. This was no ship. It was a city built for giants, now home only to echoes. She was here for salvage, for the rare alloys and technologies that could turn the tide of the war. But as she walked deeper, she felt a prickle on the back of her neck, a sense of being watched not by eyes, but by the structure itself. It was a feeling of immense, ancient loneliness, and it settled in her gut like a stone. The silence was shattered by a sound that was not a sound, but a pressure against her mind. A low, subsonic thrum that vibrated in her teeth and made her vision swim. From the crystalline walls, shapes began to coalesce. Insects, but not of any kind she knew. They were chitinous plates and jointed limbs, fused together into a single, writhing mass of malevolent purpose. The swarm. They were the architects of the war, the reason humanity was now a species in retreat. They did not communicate with words, but with a psychic chorus, a unified thought that was a weapon in itself. As they flowed towards her, a wave of cold, analytical purpose washed over her. They saw her as a resource, a biological component to be assimilated. Eva raised her pulse rifle, her heart hammering against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the face of their silent, psychic advance. She fired, and the crystal walls splintered, but the swarm simply flowed around the cracks, their numbers undiminished. They were a tide, and she was a single stone. The psychic pressure intensified, a cold, sterile intelligence probing her mind, looking for a way in. And in that moment of pure terror, something unexpected happened. Her fear, her absolute, screaming terror, was not just her own. It began to seep into the air, a tangible miasma that made the swarm's collective consciousness falter for a fraction of a second. They paused, not understanding this new, chaotic variable. They had never encountered true, unadulterated fear before. Eva backed down a corridor, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The swarm was regrouping, their psychic assault redoubling. But now it was laced with something new. A confusion, a dissonance that mirrored her own panic. They were trying to process it, to categorize it. But human emotion was a foreign language, a chaotic noise in their perfect symphony of thought. She realized, with a dawning horror and a flicker of hope, that she was contagious. Her emotions were a virus to their hive mind. They could feel her fear, and it was breaking them. She leaned against the cool, humming wall, closing her eyes, and let the despair wash over her. She thought of Earth, of the blue marble hanging in the dark, of the billions of lives she was sworn to protect. She thought of her family, of the faces she would never see again. She poured every ounce of her grief, her loneliness, her sorrow, into the air. The thrumming in the air shifted, becoming a discordant, mournful wail. The swarm recoiled, their psychic chorus now a cacophony of distress. They had encountered anger, they had encountered fear, but this was a profound, soul-crushing sadness. It was an emotion their collective mind could not compute, could not absorb. It was poison to them. A slow, triumphant smile touched Eva's lips. She had found their weakness. It wasn't a weapon or a shield. It was her own broken heart. The corridor ahead was a churning maelstrom of chitin and psychic energy. The swarm was no longer advancing in an orderly fashion. They were a panicked, writhing knot, their unified consciousness shattered into a million screaming fragments by Eva's overwhelming despair. She walked towards them, not running, but walking. With each step, she focused, not on battle, but on memory. She remembered the warmth of her mother's hands, the smell of her father's workshop, the sound of her brother's laughter. She let the bittersweet ache of these memories fill her, a complex tapestry of love and loss that was anathema to the swarm's simple, binary purpose. The psychic pressure in the air became a physical force, a storm of conflicting emotions that made the very air shimmer. The swarm began to turn on themselves, their individual drones lashing out at their neighbors, their psychic chorus a discordant scream of agony. They were being consumed by the very thing they sought to consume. Eva reached the heart of the turmoil, a pulsating mass of the primary swarm intelligence. She placed a hand on the crystalline surface and poured everything she was into it. Her love for a lost world, her fury at an unjust war, her bottomless, all-consuming grief. The structure around her groaned, not with stress, but with empathy. The walls pulsed with a soft, blue light, mirroring the sorrow in her soul. The silence that followed was more profound than any before. The swarm was gone, dissolved into nothingness, their psychic presence a void in the structure's newfound consciousness. Eva stood alone in the vast, cathedral-like chamber, the air now thick with a palpable sorrow that was both alien and deeply familiar. The megastructure was no longer empty. It was awake. It felt her grief, and in return, it offered a strange comfort. A low, mournful hum filled the space, a symphony of shared sorrow. Eva looked at her hands, then at the walls that now seemed to hold her, to understand her. The war was not over. The swarm was a plague, a cancer on the galaxy. But she had found a new kind of weapon, not one of fire and steel, but of feeling. She was a carrier, a vector for a contagion they could never anticipate. She turned and began the long walk back to her ship, the Ethelgard humming a funeral dirge for her, and for them, a harmony of a broken heart echoing through the silent stars. She was not just a survivor. She was a symphony, and she would sing her song until the end of the universe.